Emotions are not the enemy. This is how we grow as spiritual beings. A lot of us get confused about this, and we think that our unpleasant feelings define our self-worth. When I was 6 years old, I had a powerful experience that stayed with me for 30 years. I went to a very small school that had a tiny class, and my first grade class had about 8 or 9 children. During kindergarten, I was out of school quite a bit with various illnesses, including a hospital stay with pneumonia. And by first grade, most of the other girls in my class thought of me as an outsider. And I found myself left out a lot of the time during recesses and playtime. One of the girls in the class assumed the position of the boss, and nobody else challenged her. Well, every day at lunch, I sat down across the table from the other girls, who sat around her like nervous personal assistants. And each day I would ask her as sweetly as I knew how, "Kathy, what are we going to play outside today at recess?" And each day her answer was the same: "You can't play." After this had gone on for quite some time, one day I finally went in crying to talk to my first grade teacher about it. And not knowing how to deal with my feelings, she scolded me. She said, "Oh, don't be a baby. Just go outside and play with them," while tidying up the papers on her desk. Devastated, I walked outside and told the other girls that my teacher had told me that I should play with them. And when they continued to ignore me, I found my way over to the softball field and hid under the bleachers, hoping no one would see me. I felt alone and ashamed, too ashamed to tell anyone about it. I dreaded recess after that. It was not until my mid-30s that I got in touch with the feeling of being left out that had clouded most of my relationships. I felt into my sorrow, and while I was feeling into my sorrow, I noticed that below the sorrow there was a lot of anger. And when I allowed myself to feel the anger, I noticed that below the anger, there was a need for approval. And when I allowed myself to really allow the feeling of needing to be approved of, I discovered that below the feeling of needing approval was a feeling of vulnerability. When I allowed myself to feel the intense vulnerability that needed approval to make it go away, I noticed my feelings dissipating into pure, quiet space. The nagging tapes playing themselves out in my head had shut off after 30 years. My mind had become much quieter. I became self-confident and more forgiving of others, and more genuine. I had finally reawakened to my authentic self. But these judgments are what limit us from our ability to experience our true life path and to feel our intuitive nature and to feel what our life purpose is for each one of us. In my case, I accepted the judgment that it was unacceptable to feel sadness and to show hurt feelings. And I also accepted the idea that I was not valued as a friend, and I had that judgment about myself. Decisions that apply meanings to your feelings are the cause of great suffering. Before you can transform negative emotions, you must forgive yourself for having them. Until we do that, it's impossible to move forward into an arena of larger possibility. Your power is already tied up in resisting what you don't want to have.